I can't get over how profoundly stupid this is. Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister, wants China and the UK to smash the small boat engines. That's the Prime Minister's big new idea to stop illegal migration. Well, the Prime Minister's flown all the way to China, conveniently, by the way, dodging front pages and questions about his role in the hounding of some war veterans, all in to reset relations with Beijing. And what do we have to show for it? An unenforceable promise from Chinese officials that they'll somehow stop engines being sold to people smuggling gangs. Well, wouldn't that require us to know who these gangs are in the first place? And if we know who the gangs are, why aren't we just taking them out? It's a total laughingstock, this policy, across the press and media today. Then there's this other visa-free travel to China, a lovely little perk, but who actually cares? The big question here, really, is how over the barrel does China have our Prime Minister and, frankly, our whole country? Because the track record of this government on China in its short 18 months in power is quite astounding. And I've got a litany of evidence here to read you. Let's go through it together. 1. Prosecutions in a major Chinese espionage case collapsed conveniently due to disclosure and administrative failures. The Prime Minister blames the Crown Prosecution Service, but they blamed his officials. 2. Chinese state-linked tech firms have been approved for multiple UK infrastructure contracts despite multiple national security warnings. 3. Chinese state security was forced to shut secret police stations down on British soil. The police investigated and found no evidence of illegal activity at these sites, but why were they there in the first place and why were they kept secret? 4. Our primary steelmaker remains Chinese-owned and over 80% of our solar panels come from China. 5. British universities have had open research collaboration in sensitive technologies, even as MI5 warns China is a daily threat to the UK's national security.
This government and the last have been aware of the potential for a new embassy at this site since the Chinese government completed the purchase in 2018. The issues that continue to be raised in the media reports are not new to the government or the intelligence community, and an extensive range of measures have been developed to protect national security. Based on all of this and our extensive work on this matter, I am content that any risks are being appropriately managed.
Of course, that's 6. The approval of the Chinese mega spy embassy against multiple warnings of threats to our national security. Reports even suggested that the Chinese were turning off our water in our embassy in Beijing to pressure the government over that decision. Let's get to 7, because I'm not done yet. Ed Miliband recently selected a Chinese manufacturer to build a flagship net zero steel plant. 8. And the latest news blew open just the other day that China was allegedly hacking the phones of our most senior politicians, including multiple prime ministers.
The courts have already made decisions which undermine our position. And if Mauritius took us to court again, which they certainly would have, the UK's long-standing legal view is that we would not have a realistic prospect of success.
And let's not forget number 9, the surrender of the Chagos Islands to Mauritius, effectively a vassal state of China. And what do we get for all of this bending over? A toothless commitment to smash small boat engines. It's a joke. This trip is a total farce. To me, it looks more like a Prime Minister paying homage to his master rather than a meeting of equals. If that litany of policy failures in the space of just 18 months doesn't demonstrate that this government is cozying up to the communist dictatorship, I don't know what will convince you. Your personal data could be exposed right now without you even knowing it. And if you want it removed, use incogni.com/GB News in the description now and get 60% off an annual plan on us. Incogni reach out to the data brokers on your behalf and request that your information be deleted from their databases. And they'll keep sending removal requests to make sure your data stays gone. Sometimes your information ends up on strange, obscure websites that automated tools just can't reach. And that's why Incogni just launched their unlimited plan with a feature called custom removals. With this, you can submit any link where your personal information appears, literally paste in the URL, and their privacy team will investigate and work to get it removed. And getting started is super easy. Hit the link in the description, create an Incogni account, and tell them whose data you want removed. Grant them permission to work on your behalf, and then all you've got to do is sit back and relax. They'll keep you updated along the way. Incogni is totally risk-free for 30 days. If you try it, it's not for you, you'll get a full refund. So take back control of your personal data today with Incogni. Use our code GBNews at checkout via the link in the description, and you'll get 60% off an annual plan. Let's get thoughts of my panel, journalist and broadcaster Linda Duberley, Conservative peer Lord Sean Bailey, and ex-Labour advisor Matthew Laza. Linda, I'll start with you. 9 things there, and I'm sure there's more. I probably couldn't get to all of them. There, I think, are very concerning. Multiple of those, the litany of things I listed, the spy agency, this massive embassy, the police, secret police stations, the hacking of our Prime Minister's phones. Why on earth are we kowtowing now over to China when the best they can give us is to smash the small boat engines?
Well, the thing is that what China won't respect is someone that performs a latter-day kowtow. They won't respect them. You have to stand up to China if they're going to respect you. And at the moment, I'm not sure that we're doing that at all. I mean, I listened to some of the CEOs that went over on this trip. There were 50 corporate chiefs who went over on this trip. And frankly, to me, they sounded really naive. They didn't understand what the threat was at all. Now, we know there's a really big threat with the embassy at the old Royal Mint, because we know that the embassy is right beside the data cables that go into the financial sector in the city. To me, that and the Chagos Islands are the two really serious infringements. But I don't think that Keir Starmer has given a clear enough signal about how tough we have to be. He knows, for example, that when he got on that plane yesterday, that every single person had to have a burner phone. They couldn't take their own phones. They had to have temporary email addresses. On previous trips, the security has had to have been even tighter. When Theresa May went 8 years ago, it was even tighter. Now, that's not being done for nothing. Yeah. It's being done because we know that the Chinese will spy on us. I mean, we'll spy on them. Yeah. But everyone spies on everyone else.
True.
But Chinese are particularly good at it. To them, it's a bit like breathing.
And they're a superpower as well. It's not like we're sort of spying against a middle country, like a similar one to ours. This is a country that owns a lot of infrastructure, can put us at massive risk. Lord Bailey, I also will point that the Conservative Party under David Cameron really cozied up to the Chinese. Many allegations against them for that. But this is a very, in the space of 18 short months, a big litany of issues, in my opinion, with the relationship that we've got with China.
It's funny, because I remember when David and George were being accused of cozying up, Labour and the left were virulent in their opposition to that. You shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that. And it looks like, apparently, one rule for us, one rule for them. I'd say the major difference was that was much more of a business going on, as a much more trying to make money. What this seems like here is an alignment with China. We're giving China what they want. There is no other country in Europe, I believe, and certainly not the Americans, who'd place the Chinese so close to a vital piece of infrastructure, for instance. London's a big place. Let them buy an embassy somewhere else. Yeah, it's as simple as that. And I want to talk about this two things. The Chagos Islands, what that shows you is China's patience, China's guile, and our naivety. We're being manipulated by China. They've been a risk to us for ages. Our own security forces are advising the government one way, and the government are acting another way. And what that shows you is Keir Starmer has no clue about what to do to him. And what it is as well, he doesn't understand. He has to place Britain in a bit of a sacred place. He hasn't done that, and that to me is a real shock. I'm worried about that. And I go to your point, China will not respect a weak Britain. The weaker we are, the more manipulated we'll be. And there's a key thing, I've been saying it for years now. Chinese spy agencies are bombarding our young people with anti-British messages. They are. Right. That should show us. There's one thing spying on your adversary, but attacking our children in that manner, our communities in that manner, is unbelievable. And that alone should should mean we should back off slightly.
Well, I mean, I'm very confused at the moment by people like Kemi Badenoch, who are saying, and indeed Sean to a certain extent, saying we should sort of ignore China. We can't ignore China. Nobody's cozying up to China. This wasn't the Pals Act that you saw with George Osborne and David Cameron back in the day. And, you know, to be fair, they learned their lessons in future in those many Conservative Prime Ministers we had over that decade and a bit, learned the lesson. But you can't ignore China.
No, but...
And on the embassy... The government has literally followed the advice of the security agency. The government didn't go, oh, come and build an embassy in the Royal Mint. It inherited a situation where they'd already been bought that and the planning permission...
Yes, exactly. Lord Bailey's right. You could have said no. You've got steel coming from China. Why wasn't it built here in Britain? That's another problem. 80% of Ed Miliband's solar panels from China. I've got a litany of things...
Well, I suspect the sofa we're sitting on is made in China.
Let's talk about the steel for a minute. What's important about the steel is China turned off our steel production as a strategic move. If we're buying stuff from China because it's cheaper, that's
this is a fake argument.
Really clever negotiations, because the fact of the matter is that China will become the world's leading economic superpower.
If we let them.
No. They are going to do it.
The Indians and Americans...
I promise you.
They are.
I promise you they
why
will.
You might be right is because countries are doing things like we're doing. But let's be clear, the Indians and Americans are not just going to sit by.
No, it's because...
The Western world could do something about it.
I sat in Hong Kong as a foreign correspondent. This is 2 decades ago. I've interviewed Chris Patton. I've interviewed the new leader, Chen Chihua. I've been to Beijing. I've been to Shanghai. Honestly, my money is absolutely...
All right, well, Matthew, let me ask you this. Let me just, before you get started, because it does appear to many people that the Prime Minister is weak on China. And many people will point to the fact that, well, they will see him as a socialist. How on earth can he dispel those rumours when he's able to attack Donald Trump on left, right and centre when he feels like it, but we haven't said a bad word about China and their terrible human rights record?
He doesn't think he can have a connection. Can I just say, because he's a socialist, he thinks... This is the president of China, Xi, thinks everyone except the Chinese is non-Chinese. Yes. Therefore, they are always controlling the situation.
What I don't understand is the idea that the government is sort of saying, oh, we think the Chinese system is brilliant, let's be more like China. They're not saying that. No, they're not saying that at all. Let's be realistic. All these Tory politicians popping up saying, oh, we should have nothing to do with China. I'd like to look in their houses and see, I'd like to look at where their suit was made, they're standing there.
Matthew,
but then you cannot ignore an economic superpower, Alex.
Matthew, no one's arguing that we shouldn't ignore China.
Yes, they are. Kemi's saying she wouldn't have gone.
Well, that's fine. I've been very critical of the Conservatives' past on this, and I don't think we should be cozying up to China. We've got a very good economic ally in America who's booming at the moment. But the problem is that, well, how many more things do you want me to read off?
But, Alex, we're not cozying up to them. Let's look at the Americans.
We've got spy scandals.
The Americans are imposing random tariffs on us.
Embassies. We don't need to be doing all of this. We're doing too much.
We're not doing... Can I have a say, Sean? We're not doing too much. We are sensibly engaging with China with a sensible scepticism, but an acknowledgement that China is the number 2 economy in the world, as Linda says, very likely to be the number 1 economy in the world. And, of course, the government has been critical of human rights abuses, both publicly and it will be privately in these meetings as well.
Yeah, but I am saying...
Here's the 2 things I want to say. Firstly, about a smashing of the boats and the idea we're going to do it with China not selling. That's nonsense. They already have those engines. The only way to stop these gangs is twofold. One, you have to have a relationship with the government in the country in which they're operating, and you need to break their economic model, because they will just buy those engines from somewhere else. That's
correct.
And the other piece as well, we have been very critical of America for some of Trump's tariffs and stuff like that, which is true, but we haven't said the same of China, which is practice some very sharp economic practice, and we haven't confronted them. That's why they're such a big power.
Sean's exactly right about those boat engines. All the smugglers will do, once they're presented with that situation, is convert so that they will do something different to get round it. That's all they're going to do.
We have an exclusive here on GB News today, by the way, saying that these small boat people smugglers were already moving away from China because the engines weren't very reliable.
Yeah, right. But what I am saying is, although China is going to be the economic superpower, I'm almost certain of that. Every economist is certain of that. The fact is, you can negotiate with China and have an effective and adult sophisticated, as Keir Starmer said, relationship that does not involve kowtowing to them.
Yeah, totally
So
right.
all I'm suggesting is the relationship has to exist, be real, but make sure the relationship is conducted along assertive lines.
Yeah, totally agree with you, Linda. Listen, I'm sure we'll be talking about China a lot more in the coming years because they're not going anywhere, are they? They're getting more and more powerful. So I do think we need to get a bit of a backbone on this one. But anyway, look,